Welcome back, everybody. So last week we did an exercise to start gathering materials to serve as inspiration for the making of our show. We collected a prop, a costume piece, a song, a piece of text, and a picture to use. Now this week we're going to start talking about co-creating a plot, a story. And before we get to that, we're going to have Mariah give us just a quick review of story structure.
So typically, a story has a beginning, middle, and end. In the beginning, there's usually some kind of inciting incident where a conflict is set up. In the middle of the story, the conflict escalates. In the end, the conflict reaches its peak or climax, then the story falls and ends with the conflict settled or resolved.
To move along the creation of our little theater piece and start to develop a storyline, this week we did an activity called FLIPBOOK. Person one in the group creates a frozen picture using their body. It could be a frozen picture of them doing an activity or just a frozen picture of a moment in time where something's happening. Person two looks at person one's image and thinks, what might come before this moment they're showing, and what might come right after this moment they're showing? And then they, as person two, create a frozen picture from their own imagination of that before moment and that after moment. So now you have three images. Person three then comes in, looks at the central image and the before and after, and then creates their own before and after images around what person two has created. Person four comes in, person five, and so on and so forth. Each time as if you're adding another bookend layer of before and after images. So that at the end, you have this string of images that tells a story from start to finish. And right in the middle is that first image that person one created. FlipBook.
So my take on the flipbook right now is that there's this person that's been thinking about going outside but actively chooses not to, only to discover that they really need to go outside to get more food. But once they get outside, they're very nervous, and that nervousness ends up being justified because they witness something really upsetting that leads to a confrontation later on.
What I got from the story was that it was a group of roommates all experiencing isolation a little differently. Some of them were spending their time eating, watching TV, until something happens outside. Clearly, there's a commotion that causes everyone to have a fright, someone's looking out the windows with binoculars, and we're just unsure of what it is that the incident was that happened. We have to find out though.
In this flipbook string of images, I saw the story of a man locked in some kind of mortal combat with his elderly woman neighbor who lives just across the alleyway.
There's this person stuck at home because of COVID-19. They're eating because they're bored. They run out of food, so they go outside to go get some more food, and they see something. I decided that it was a dog getting hit by a car. So they try to go back inside and not to think about it, but they can't stop thinking about it and looking at the dog in the street, and they decide to go outside and confront the person who hit the dog. And that is the story.
There's a man who is inside, and he is overcome with two deadly sins of gluttony and sloth, and he doesn't do anything. Even though there's been a nuclear blast outside, he has no idea because he's just eating all his food till he runs out and ends up eating mayonnaise, and then he gets outside and sees very few people, and everyone he sees is wearing masks, but he doesn't know what's going on. So he's exposed to the radioactivity and begins to turn into a werewolf.
I'm curious too about like the interconnectedness of the stories that we told.
I feel like the common themes are voyeurism, inside, outside, people watching one another.
Some kind of chaos.
Some kind of chaos in the external world that
Also,
draws someone outside. What was that, Nina?
Food as like a motivator.
Food is a motivator. And then I think, Ed, you also used the word confrontation.
I'm also thinking that a heavy theme is paranoia.
Oh, well, I was thinking to myself after Mariah said that, I was like, what if the person who ran, because my story was about, someone sees someone run over a dog. What if the person who ran over the dog is just like an old lady who was just kind of oblivious?
But that reminds me then of Mariah's cast of 5 roommates. What if they all see this inciting incident? And then the sort of driving conflict of the play becomes, what do we do?
I think that would be one way to make the story possible. It's like shared interest is we're all in like an apartment building. We have different viewpoints to this incident.
Something happens that separates these roommates. Once a week they have Zoom meetings to catch up with each other and talk about things. And the ongoing conspiracy is that the house dog was killed by the old lady that lives back there. And then maybe during that Zoom call, the old lady comes into the backyard, we see a character go off of screen, have the confrontation, hear the sounds of the confrontation, the death, come back to the roommates. Mrs. McCallahan is dead.
Can we please make this old lady the landlord? Because then we owe her money too, that we can't get because of some crisis.
I really love this. And then it's like she's been killed inadvertently by their actions. And then this sort of, the play itself is us, like, what do we do? Well, we don't have the money to pay rent. It would be convenient if she died. And then someone's like, how can you say that?
This week, we made great progress towards the creation of our story.
But we want to see what you can make.
Take a look at this picture.
What do you think happened right before this picture was taken? What do you think happened right after? Feel free to talk with your friends and collaborate like we did. Maybe even add some pictures of your own to the story.
By the end of the exercise, you'll have made your own original story with us.
We can't wait to see your responses.
Tune in next week to see how we start to develop our characters for our piece.
We'll see you soon.